Hey y'all, got a little project I'm working on. I want to show you. All right, for those of you that are new, my name is Ryan Olson and I'm the owner of Whitebone Creations, which is a small furless taxidermy business, and I specialize in skull cleaning. This video is a how-to on a longhorn that was 30 years old. This particular steer died of old age. And what you're going to see from here on is a bit gruesome, but you got to go through the gruesome to get to the beautiful. So stay with me. I'm going to take you step by step on what I think is probably the most difficult animal you can European. Step one will always be to remove the hide first. That would be my rule and my recommendation. So I like to use an interchangeable blade knife. This particular one is made by the brand Silverware. I love it. I have used it on thousands of animals and it has been tried and true. It took me 6 blades to get this completely skinned. So I just start in one place and remove all the hide. The biggest difference for me talking to somebody who does typical taxidermy is when you're going to mount an animal or use its hide to stretch over a mannequin, you want to get as little meat as possible. With a European skull, you want to take as much meat as possible. Get as tight to the bone as you can. It's literally 2 different styles of skinning. But I like to gather up as much as I can. Pull that tongue, get it nice and tight against that atlas joint. Cut up next to the horn, but don't cut so close where you're cutting the horn, because when the horns come off, that fur burr will stay there and you can just rinse it right off. This is a lot of hard work. It's very heavy, very difficult, and in fast forward, it looks very smooth and mechanical, but it is very difficult. I do not want to send a false impression that this is just a job for anyone. Next step is to remove the jaw. I cut right and left of the mandible. If you were to open your mouth and draw a line between your open mouth, I cut there, right and left of the jawbone, and then hyperextend it. You'll be able to see how old this bull is once I show you his teeth. It's just worn to nothing. This bull was just ill and had a fabulous life here in Southern California, and he'll be honored on the owner's wall. That poor old thing was hurting, man. Then I remove both eyes, and then we're going to head over to the concrete where I'm going to try and remove the auditory bull, kind of like an ear butt, and I'm going to wash out the brain as much as I can right now because it'll make it a very, very clean boil. With that little nodule knocked out, I take a 1-inch hole saw and I make a nice clean hole so there's nothing for that tissue to hang on to, and then I run that same drill right down the brain hole and just scramble it to a puree, and then take the garden hose and hit it, and it will rinse out all that gray, or in this case, pink matter. Wash her till she runs clean, and then from here, I know we're moving pretty fast, but it's all pretty straightforward. I have hundreds of these videos on different species on this exact same channel, so if you want super detailed per critter, go on back, check out any of those other ones. But I'm going to fill this big water trough full of clear water, no soap. I'm going to drop that steer head down in there, and I'm going to let it boil for a good long time, because the next step for me is to get these horns off, and that is not an easy process. At this point, it's been in there for about 2.5 hours. I'm going to take like a sand hammer, a big heavy sand hammer, and I'm going to smack that horn. The horn itself will come off a cord that's attached to the skull, kind of like pulling a sheath away from a knife. A lot of times it takes a little bit of shock and a little bit of force. In this case, I had to hook a winch to my boat trailer and put a lag in the ground and give it a tug because I physically didn't have the strength to do it. So this is a 1,000-pound Warren battery-operated winch, a gift from my father. I just wrapped it up with a strap, applied a little pressure, and I got one of the 2 horns off, the one that was completely submerged in the boil. Now this is a more realistic look at the second core that wasn't in the boil. I beat on it for like 15 minutes. I can't get it to budge, so it's a clear sign that I need to put it back in the boil. And to make myself some room, I cut the horn core of the one that had come off. I cut it down so I can get that entire horn put back into the pot. There is no way that I'm aware of to hurry this process Be patient, commit the time, and know that it's going to be a struggle. Y'all, fast forward now another 2 hours. So we're 4.5 hours into just getting these horns off. Classic skull guy smackdown, just relentless. I just said I can't do it anymore. I gotta go to the winch, and it was really the secret sauce. I'm so glad that I did this. I know a few boys that have pulled before. I've got phone calls from the boys in West Texas saying, hey man, we'll hook 2 trucks up to it. So if you feel like you're at that point in life where you're not learning anymore, well then you're not listening to the people around you. Don't matter how good you are, there's always room to get better. So I took the advice from those guys, I hooked it up, and man, it was the answer, and now I get to share it with you. So please do not hesitate to send me some info, some feedback, some comments. I'm gonna listen, I'm gonna try them, and I'm gonna make my own decisions, and I'm grateful for the advice. And just like that, we got it done. Just like that means 5.5 hours of just whooping on this thing till they came off.
All right, got about an hour left of light. I'm just gonna wash till I run out of time.
Once again, for those that are new, I have a rule, and that rule is take your power washer and you're gonna wanna spray into every hole in every orifice. Anywhere there is meat or tissue, make it go away. Let's get to washing, y'all. With that skull 97% clean, 98% clean of all the meat and tissue, I stick it in a big tub and I add Dawn dish soap and a product from the pool supply called GLB Shock Oxidizer. It used to be Aquasilk. I put a whole gallon of it down in this tub, a good slug of soap, and then I drop a heating element in there and I just let it warm overnight. So essentially I'm not boiling, I just have a really hot mixture of this product, and it's gonna whiten, do a little bit of degreasing, and it's gonna give me an idea of how long the degreasing process is gonna be once I let it dry. Once I've let a skull dry after cleaning it, I do not like to reboil, but I'm perfectly fine with cold soaking or a warm, hot, soapy soak. This is where things get confusing. So it looked beautiful and bright white when I pulled it out of that 24-hour original soak you saw me washing. Then it had been in a degreaser or multiple degreasers with warm water for over 2 weeks. And once I let it dry, it looked worse than it did in the beginning. That oil is just trying to get out of there. There's no fast track way to get rid of all oil, nor do I personally think all oil should be gone. People on the internet are wildly passionate about this subject, and my name has been mud for many moons of telling you the wrong thing. Just make your own decisions and take advice from all angles. Here's where things start to get a little bit controversial. A completely degreased skull does not have the same integrity that a skull with grease or oil in the bone does. Oil is a binder. It keeps it together. So if we make something that's completely oil-free, you're losing integrity. I won't show you what I'm talking about. If you look here at the nose, you can see where it's starting to soften. The eye sockets starting to expose some of that oil-free bone. So we've got a spot left here, we've got a spot left here, and we've got a spot left there. Now we know for sure that there's heavy structure right here, because if we go into the horn core, down in the back, there's just a heavy chunk of bone that supports that skull. So no matter what happens at this point, this will be my last soak. So it has seen this whole tub full of water and 1 gallon of aqua silk. Then a heating element a couple days. It's going to get that one last time, regardless of the outcome. All right, so here is the horns, just with a coat of flooring Mop and Glow on them. Just leaves a little bit of a sheen, keeps them from peeling up, makes them look nice, and you can wipe them down. As far as the grease note, look at this old bison, right? So this bison never got anything but a boil and a color batch, and it is grease-free and beautiful. The integrity of that bone is solid. Part of the difference is this animal's only 5 years old, as to where that steer is 30. So you can imagine, I always use the analogy, sounds gross, but like old people toenails, they just change and get worse. That's how it works. So every animal's different. Consider that, know that, and do whatever it takes to get the results you're looking for without damaging the skull. All right. So many words all at once. Let me summarize it into this. There is no method that is 100% foolproof for all skulls. All skulls are different, and all methods vary. Just use your own judgment, and don't cast judgment on others. Just absorb what they have to say and make your own decisions. All right. I foamed in those cores because they were getting a little bit thin. I've already gone and set an eye bolt in here, and it will go on a J-hook and hang on the wall about like this. All right, I'll voice over this part because it takes a little bit of time. So those horns will only go on one way, and they're gonna need a little bit of smacking to go back on, just like they did to come off originally, because everything is tightened up and shrunk a little bit with the boil over and over and over. So I get them fit. I like to look at an original picture, make sure I got them on the right side. Obviously the horn itself will tell you, but just double check. And then because I don't want to put any Bondo on here, just because if anything ever happened, I want to be able to remove these and then put them back on. With Bondo, it's a one-time deal. And as big as these are, super easy. So I just run a couple screws into that horn core. That foam helps me kind of grab it and really bind in there good. And then I'm going to just apply a coat of Mop and Glow. This dries in about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm actually going to walk it outside, set it in the sun to dry, and wrap up this film. all finished up. His name was Tex. He's a 30-year-old steer. He's a longhorn mixed breed cross, excuse me, from Southern California. He watched over this particular herd for forever and just got old like we all do and passed away. I was tasked with cleaning him up, and this is the final result for me. I want to just, because I've beat it up this whole film, just talk about one little aspect. Oil in bone does not create stink, does not create bugs, does not create problems. It is very much a binder in bone. That's my belief and what I feel. I'm not trying to put that on you or change your agenda. I think that look that we all like, it's this bright white sort of look, reminds us of finding something in the woods that's sun bleached and what have you. So just figure out exactly what the budget has in store, what you like as a finished product, and what makes sense for you and the person that's going to put it on their wall. I like to be very open about it. I like a little color, natural color in the bone. If it's too white, I don't really care for it. I like, I use the word sometimes calicoing or antiquing or whatever. You can see on this skull right here, there's a little bit of, part of that's drying mop and glow, and then part of that's oil that's left in that core right there. But if I go much further there, I'm not going to be happy with the rest. So this will blend and look as natural as anything, and I love it. So that's just me. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you so much for always watching. Thank you for supporting, and thank you for following along. If you watched on Instagram, I've done a bunch of like little pieces. This has taken about a month and a half. Don't be afraid to try. Just know that these are a really big project. Thanks again.